Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Qween Exchange series. This is a series where we exchange thoughts, ideas, and insights from experts across industries. And today we have a very interesting topic, which is about how to recession-proof your career. And we have Arjun Prakash, who is the founder of Pivot, who's here. Welcome, Arjun. How are you?
I'm good, Neha. Thank you for having me.
So Arjun, this topic definitely is very relevant to our audience, and we would love to know a little bit about yourself, your company, and how did you come about this idea, and what's your journey like?
Absolutely. A lot to discuss here. So I'll try to just hit the key highlights. Basically, Neha, I've spent my career in management consulting. I spent about a decade working in US, in New York, and then I moved back to India. Worked here for about 3 years. Um, Neha, are you there?
Sorry. Yes, sorry about that.
Okay. Okay, no worries. Yeah, so I was just sharing. I worked as a consultant in India for about 3 years. I was leading a business vertical for a firm called Mercer, which is a large HR consulting firm. And
Mm-hmm.
after that, in late 2020, I started working on my own business, which we have called Pivot. And Pivot is a online platform that helps people make smooth career transitions if they're changing their domain, their industry, or level within the organization. So we've been doing that for about 2 years now, and have helped about 3,300 people with their careers. Yeah, that's been my journey so far.
Wow, that's great. And it's very similar to what we do here at Queen as well. We at Queen also help specifically women, diversity talent, to get back to careers or help them advance in their careers. So we do have a lot of synergies, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, coming back to the topic, right? So, as per your, I mean, you have coached so many 3,300 plus students or job seekers, right? So, as per your expertise, what are the key skills that are relevant in this market, which are recession proof, or which you think are going to stay even though whatever economic downturn may come?
Yeah, that's a good question, slightly broad. So there's lots to cover. Maybe we can break it down into multiple parts, right? I think, firstly, in today's day and age, when there's so much focus on upskilling, the most important thing is to understand how to learn. In the sense, it gets a little meta, kind of learning how to learn. Because most of the times, when you're bombarded with new concepts and new skills in the market, you won't be able to retain everything that's out there. So,
Right.
the general framework that I recommend to people is, firstly, developing self-awareness, understanding, who you are, what your current strengths and core competencies are, and then identifying some gaps that will help you perform better in your target role, whether it's your current role that you want to grow in or another role that you're targeting going forward. Identify what you already are good at and what you need to bridge the gaps for. So that's step one, the self awareness. The second thing is, once you have the self awareness, you need to understand what are the market trends, right? Because self awareness is about you, market trends are about the external environment, right? So you need to figure out what are some of the core skills that employers, organizations, clients are requiring for you to perform your work, right? That gives you a holistic idea of what are some of the key skills that you might be lacking, but also the ones that are being trending in the market, right? The final framework that I have is, for learning how to learn, is prioritization, right? In prioritization, when you have, let's say, 5 skills you're targeting, like I said, it can become hard if you juggle all of them simultaneously. So it's an imperative that you go down the order of your skills in terms of the vitality, the requirement, also what will take more time to pick up. For example, let's say you're learning how to use chat gpt. Also, I'm going to try and not bring up chat gpt too many times in this particular episode, because I'm personally sick of how much it's being talked about. But
Right.
still, it's a it's a new and trending tool. So let's at least discuss it once or twice. So ChatGPT is something that any layman can pick up perhaps in 2 days if you spend enough time giving certain prompts and doing certain research, right? But there might be other things. Let's say you're learning digital marketing. Now digital marketing is going to take some more time, right? At least I would say a month, maybe even up to 3-4 months to get the basic concepts right. So you have to understand which skills are going to take more time versus the ones that might be relatively easier or more or less time consuming to pick up. So yeah, I think that's a general framework: self-awareness,
So
market research, and then prioritization.
So I'm glad that you brought up ChatGPT because I know it's such a buzzing word right now. And even though, like you said, like you could learn ChatGPT in a couple of days if you spend time over it. But since we are talking about skills, are there particular skills you can develop or particular careers you can develop through maybe just learning ChatGPT, right? Like content creators, for example, is one that I can think of. But if you can just maybe highlight a few relevant skills or job careers that you can develop out of it.
Yeah, you mean specifically using ChatGPT or AI
Correct.
tools?
Yes.
Yeah, plenty of careers that you can actually develop. I think the biggest use case is definitely in marketing and content creation for sure.
Right.
But I have also seen people just developing websites using ChatGPT, right? So, for example, ChatGPT can really assist you in writing code as well. I personally am not from tech background, so I can't speak to the quality of that code, but I have spoken to a lot of other people in tech, and while they would not completely outsource the entire web or app development to ChatGPT, it has, I would say, reduced their time to develop a new, let's say, one homepage or web page from by about like 50%, I would say. So it's cut down the time into half, right? So you can definitely utilize ChatGPT in different ways outside of marketing and content creation as well, even though that's the biggest use case that most people are using it for. I also think a lot of sales folks have been using ChatGPT to write emails for their, to their clients. This is something that sales folks do on a regular basis, so it gets a little mechanical of a task, right? And it's a repeatable process. So think of it this way: anything that can be repeated and done in a similar manner, which doesn't require human judgment and intervention frequently, can be outsourced to ChatGPT. Obviously, there are going to be exceptions, but yeah, I think that's how you can think of ChatGPT to assist in your career.
Nice. Thanks for sharing those insights. Actually, now just taking a step back to the previous question and to a broader topic, where are there any specific industries which are recession proof or which do not, impact any economic downturn? So maybe because what I mean, our audience is looking for is actually targeting those industries and then getting into those specific skill sets so that they know which way to go to. And especially when we have diversity talent who is also looking sometimes for slightly flexibility, these are the key points that they need while they choose or wanting to advance or switch their careers.
Right. So, I mean, we want to focus primarily on the industries that are recession proof, firstly, and then talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think there are plenty of industries that are generally recession proof. I would say any that are cyclical in nature are or less recession proof. So cyclicality means like they rise more during boom and they fall more during bust as well, right? So they really rise and fall with the boom and bust of the economy. Um, I think, for example, if you think about hospitality and travel, that's one of the biggest industries that is not recession proof. It actually really is tied to how the economy is doing because people have more disposable income,
Right.
when times are good. And there are certain other things which are like, for example, F&B. Although, I mean, if you talk to people in F&B and, the utility goods kind of space, they would say that, yes, they also get impacted a little bit. But I mean, mostly that market is insensitive to what's happening because everybody is going to continue buying their groceries, even if there is a recession. So I wouldn't say that this particular aspect ties a lot to AI, or sorry, recession proofing your careers necessarily, because there are going to be, almost every industry is going to get impacted. Like for example, let's say tech, right? So tech is an industry which people have in the last 2 3 decades seen as the industry being at the forefront of things, right?
Yeah.
So it's usually grown at the fastest pace compared to most other industries over the last 2 3 decades. But now it's not about the recession per se, but the kind of technological advancement that's happening within tech industry, like AI, and also somewhat tied to the interest rates in the market, which are very high right now. Because of that, the tech industry has also undergone a fair amount of downturn, and they have done significant layoffs. They've done almost, I think, 250,000 of layoffs globally in the last year itself. So I would say the answer to this question is a little more complicated than just saying which industry is insulated from a recession versus which one is not. I think you have to kind of understand where your skill sets count the most from an industry standpoint, and make sure that your particular competency does not get outdated or obviated by any recession, by technological advancement, those kind of things. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. I know it wasn't the most straightforward answer.
No, I hear you. I mean, we are basically saying that even though, let's say, for example, tech is going through a rough patch or like a economic downturn, but we have to make ourselves skill ready as much so that we can adapt to other new technologies or new skills that are coming, right? So that definitely does resonate with how I think the market is also going right now, because I think everybody is probably now pondering upon these new terms and trying to see and learn. Now, coming to specific skills, right? Which are the top skills that you think are something that one must, with the current trending skills that are in the market, right? Which one should acquire if they are seeking for a job or looking to change their careers?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. Again, I think a lot of it will depend on which field you are in, especially when we are talking about functional domain, or as we call it, hard skills. But I think there are certain other, I would say, I don't want to call them soft skills, but like, let's say, behavioral skills or self-management skills, right, which are becoming more and more important. And they are more important because generally people tend to assign slightly less value to them. So in my perspective, I would say one of the biggest skills that people should now start focusing on is adaptability. So adaptability comes in different forms and fashion, right? Sometimes it's reactive in nature and sometimes in proactive in nature. So what I mean by that is, a lot of times today now people are reacting to the fact that there are new AI tools in the market that they need to learn. So nobody was proactive about it. People generally started learning it because everybody else was doing it, right? But yes, it's a need of the hour. So it is better to understand how to use these tools rather than completely circumventing them, or thinking that it would not affect you. I think these tools, after a certain point, they're going to start affecting more and more people, to be honest. Like, I don't think like we said, it's just going to be content marketing or just the software developers who are going to be using it. I think even auditors and people across the field, I think, for example, even in manufacturing, it's going to be AI is going to be used to automate a lot of the processes. So I think it's very, very important to understand how to use these tools, even if you don't understand the behind the scenes of how they work, right? So this is more of the reactive approach, I would say. Then there is the proactive approach to adaptability. What that means is that you kind of take a more active approach in terms of understanding what you may need for performing well in your career down the line. It could be, let's say, a 4 to 5 year strategy where you see yourself after that time. And let's say if it's a senior managerial role or a leadership role, you'll definitely need, good, let's say, public speaking skills or people management skills, empathy skills, a lot of these kind of skills. um, and so it's better to start practicing those right away in a proactive manner, rather than you being promoted to a managerial role and you feeling like you are under equipped to perform well, to manage a team well in that, right? So I think people should assess their career trajectories, not just for the next couple of months, but over a multi-year period, to understand, what they can do proactively and adapt before they are kind of pushed or forced to adapting. I think that's one of the skills.
Sure.
Apart from
So
that, I mean, there are multiple other skills I can talk about, but again, I think it gets very tailored to which field or which role you are in.
so these are per se more of soft skills that we are kind of, and eventually I guess your point is that which need to then go to their specific domains and convert into the hard tech skills that they need to focus on. With the experience that you have and the number of people that you have impacted as well, can you give me like specific examples of individuals who may have transitioned in their careers by leveraging these skills, or maybe like some couple specific examples of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of my favorite examples because it was one of our early, customers who came to us to transition. So this gentleman, he had about, I think, 7-8 years of work experience in shipping industry actually, and he worked as a metallurgical engineer. So a very specific niche kind of a role, right? Working in a shipping industry, shipping meaning transportation, logistics, that kind of work. And he was not very happy because he had to travel a lot, because of his job, and he wanted to switch to finance, investment banking, in fact, right? So that was a complete 180-degree switch. There was very limited transferable skills that he had that he could apply in his new role. So it required a lot of upskilling for him, and he was able to change the kind of profile he had over a 3 to 4 month period and actually land a job in investment banking, doing two things primarily, I would say, from a skill standpoint. Number one, even though I said that there were hardly any transferable skills, the ones that he had, we really helped him focus on that. So he had some experience in transportation and logistics sector, right? And investment bankers, typically, they don't have industry specialists working for them. But there are times when, for example, in India, there's a huge focus on infrastructure right now, and about like Adani's developing the ports and special economic zones and those kind of things. So there's a lot of deal making that might be happening in the infra sector, and we helped him target those investment banks that actually do majority of their deals or focus on transportation, logistics, infrastructure sector. So even though he was an engineer by background, we leveraged his industry knowledge to get him a foot in the door for investment banking that way. So that's on the transferable skills side. Even though they might be limited and you might feel like, oh, there is not going to be much overlap, there's no point of this. I think you should think twice about that. What you know currently is perhaps more important and transferable than what you might anticipate. The second thing I would say he did was quickly understand what are some of the core skills needed from an investment banker when they are entering an analyst role or a junior level role, and quickly master those. Because if you just look at investment banking as an entire field, there are multiple roles in it, right? You don't have to master the skills for every single role. You have to focus on the one that you're going to apply for, right? So he wasn't applying for team manager role or a client facing role that much. He was primarily applying for an analyst role because he knew he would have to start over a little bit. And for an analyst, the analytical skills, pitch deck preparation skills, a little bit of communication skills to present your work, and a general understanding of your industry, those were very, very important. And as soon as he identified those, he also understood that there were only very few courses in the market that he could take for investment banking. So he did a pros and cons analysis of all these courses that were available and tried to judge them on the parameters that matter to him most. So, for example, budget is a big parameter for most people. How much can they spend on a course? So he
Right.
evaluated different requirements for the course and then made a decision, was able to get a certificate, and then finally landed the role in about, I think, 4 months time frame. So yeah, that's how this whole transition worked out.
Oh, nice. So those are very good examples because that one talks about the transferable skills, which my next question is about. In terms of transferable skills, right? How does one assess, identify, and actually communicate to the employer, that these are the skills that I really can manage to do, even though the job profile is of something else, which may not be completely relevant to what their previous profile was.
So can you just repeat that one? Your voice was a little choppy.
In terms of transferable skills, how does
Mhm.
one assess and identify their skills and then actually apply to the job that they are looking for?
Sure. See, I think that's an easy thing to identify, personally speaking, although I don't want to undervalue the gravity of that question. I think a lot of times people they get into a rhythm of doing things when they are in a job, and they don't take the time to self reflect after, let's say, certain times. I think what can help is actually take the time to introspect, let's say once every 4 or 6 months, to understand what are some of the things that you have been working on over these months that have helped you develop a strong skill in that arena, right? So again, it will really depend on what your role has been. But let's say if you're a salesperson, doing like tens of calls a day or sending out tens of emails a day, you probably have become fairly good at selling or fairly good at cold outreach to people and getting a yes from them, right, compared to most other people. Although I know not every sales folks would say that they're good at it, but yes, compared to most other people who don't have the skill of doing tens of email outreach or cold calling outreach, they're probably better than them. So taking uh, or doing self reflection, perhaps 4 to 6 months, will tell you, okay, this is one of my core competency because I have been doing it for these past few months. And that knowledge is paramount for you to understand what your transferable skills are. Otherwise, people tend to downplay what they already know. I have generally seen that, especially when it comes to career transitions, because see, if I'm somebody, let's say, take the example of the person we are talking about. If I am working in transportation shipping sector and I want to become an investment banker, I can have two types of perceptions. One perception is I know nothing about investment banking, and hence I will have to completely start from scratch and I'll probably fail. So that's one perception. The other perception is I don't know anything about investment banking, but I have spent about 7, 8 years in logistics and I know a lot about logistics. So maybe I can target certain industries which will value my knowledge of logistics sector. Right. So these are the same people but could have very different perceptions. So your perception of your skills matter a lot as well. So yeah. So I think this is with
and
regard to
and
transferable
I guess
skills.
how you put it out there, right? Like how you pitch yourself out there is also part of the perception that will matter. So I think we are almost coming close to the end of the session, but one last question before we go is, anybody who's probably right now going through a tough time finding a job, if you had to give one takeaway in terms of how to get that job which they are really looking for, then what would that be?
See, my main advice right now would be, if you're looking for a job, is again taking a very targeted approach towards job search, as opposed to applying for any job that you're seeing on LinkedIn or Indeed or any other portal out there. What most people do is they just refresh their resume slightly and then just get to applying, right? I think personally it requires a little more thoughtfulness and planning before you start applying for roles, and that could mean like doing multiple things before you actually start applying for roles. For example, you might want to actually build a proper network by reaching out to, let's say, hiring managers or recruiters about why you are interested in a specific role and why you are a good fit for that role, right? So crafting customized messages to send people on LinkedIn, I think that works wonders, especially when you're making career transitions. Apart from that, like I said, understanding if you have any skill gaps before applying is paramount today, because if you continue to apply without having some of the required skills, you're just going to keep getting no's, and that's going to deter your morale as well up to an extent. So doing those two things is a little underrated, networking and upskilling. Apart from that, I think, yeah, prepping your job application in a personalized manner for each role that you're applying for, rather than sending the same generic application or same generic resume. uh, I think those are things that people already know about generally, but I would say, yeah, spending some time to tailor your resume and cover letters to the profile you're applying for is also quite helpful.
I totally agree. I mean, definitely upskilling yourself, being out there, networking, and making those personalized cover letters and resumes definitely does help. So I think with that, we would have to wrap this up. But it was a really great session, Arjun. Thank you so much for coming. And we really appreciate your time and insights that you shared with us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Neha. I enjoyed this session.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.